you had your opportunity to have the Texas that
Why would we have wanted that?
ATM.
When we got ATM money and this and we're better. We're right where we need
Hi,
to.
Neil. How you doing, sir?
We want ours.
Crack that thing, man.
The Finance Committee will come to order, please. Thank you all for being here this morning. Do we have any citizens signed in to address the board? We do not have any citizens signed this morning. Item number 3, minutes from the prior meeting, February 25th. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Item 4, Ms. Clark, the CFO update. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. So I just have a couple of items before we go over the financials. There is a new report on the board portal. If you've had a chance to look at it, it's those contract amendments that are less than $200,000. There's only 3 entries on them. We will not cover those in detail, but since it was a new report this month, I wanted to go ahead and point that out. If you have any questions, feel free to talk to me today after the meeting, but that was there just for your information. The second item that I wanted to talk to you about is we are beginning to consider our budget 17, believe it or not, calendar. History has set itself that we ask you guys to come in on a Saturday, and Steve Montgomery and I have been considering actually moving that to an extended Thursday Finance Committee session.
Correct.
Would you like to?
You bet. We traditionally done it on Saturday, and people block out their Saturday, and it turns out that we don't really need a full day. Typically, it's not more than a few hours. So what Sharon and I thought is, instead of taking a Saturday in the middle of everyone's summer, is that we do a Thursday morning, maybe an 8 to noon block out,
Right.
thinking that we won't even need that. I mean, we probably will get out in 3 hours at the most. So if that was acceptable to everyone, thought we would give you a Saturday back and take a Thursday morning from you.
You got it.
Biggest no-brainer I've heard today.
Is that for the budget presentation or the budget calendar?
It's currently scheduled. It would be for the full budget presentation. Right now, it's on your calendars for August the 6th, Saturday, August the 6th. We would propose the Finance Committee that's currently scheduled for the July 28th from 10 to noon, just be extended from maybe 8 to noon.
So we don't have to decide it today, but we thought we'd put it on y'all's plate for consideration, and
I think
we'll
that
visit with the
timing will be
chairman.
fine. I'll be bringing budget updates, and we'll be discussing key items of the budget. This will be the first budget year that I'll be here for the full year. So it will not, the budget will not be new to you on that budget day. So, July, August will not be the first time you'll be hearing about budget 17. So it will just be the full extended budget presentation, very much like you saw last year when I was here presenting it on that Saturday.
right.
So conceivably, we could be adopting the budget that day to come to court.
Correct. And if I recall correctly, when we talked about budget 16 on that Saturday workshop, we actually did
Right.
approve the budget at the end of
Right.
that day as well.
That's right.
Okay.
But that's up to this board at the end of that day.
So we may bring that up at the next full board to get everyone to input on that.
Yeah.
We thought we would suggest today and have everyone think about if that works for them.
Just a suggestion,
Yes.
so.
No, reason I asked is that, because I would just hope if we agree to do that, then that would be the plan to do that finance, so that when because what we've done in the past has been workshop, and then we were always projecting to do another meeting to adopt, but normally in the past years, we've adopted on that workshop day.
Yes.
Okay, but.
Correct.
And so I just would hope it's a consensus that we, in the same mood, that we not do a workshop and then later we come back and mix and match,
And,
so.
right.
Right, that's a good point. I suggested that we just extend the finance committee, but we may want to make that a full board. Just use the same time frame
Yes.
for a full board meeting.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Great.
That was it.
All right. Then you want to go right into the financials, Steve?
Yes, I do. We had a great financial month, and most of that is due just simply to volumes. We had a very strong inpatient and outpatient month for volumes. As you can see by the inpatient statistics, admissions were up by about 8%. We also had case mix up by 5%. You'll notice at the bottom here, length of stay was actually over, but that was supported by case mix. Although length of stay was up by 6%, as I stated earlier, case mix was up by about 5%. You can see from an outpatient standpoint, our emergency visits were up by 6%. Total clinic visits were down compared to budget by about 3%, but they were actually up by close to 3,000 visits from last month. Urgent care visits were actually down slightly from budget, but just about even from last month. And our other key statistics continue to be strong. Our observation days are over. And in my pre-call with Mr. Montgomery, we did have some good conversation about what is an observation day. Are observation days good? Are observation days bad? So I thought I would take a little time today to talk about what is an observation day. And this is just, may not be in any kind of a textbook, but from my standpoint, an observation day is somewhere between an ER visit and an inpatient stay. And it is defined by medical necessity. It is not something that is good or bad, but is defined by the patient's condition. So they are patients that take up an inpatient bed. So when you start to look at how busy is your hospital, how busy is your nursing staff, you have to look back at that patient days. Sorry, I'm having trouble with the pointer. You have to look at this patient day, and you can combine that with your observation days. So it's not necessarily a good thing for you to have a lot of observation days versus inpatient days versus ED visits. It kind of is what it is, but it's a good indicator to see how busy things were and how things are playing out from your hospital activity. So just a little education if you needed it.
I did.
So, and then observation days, we convert it into a patient day, but observations are actually done by hours, and it's typically, we take them out of the ER. They may need hydration. They may need just to be on a cardiac monitor. They're typically, but not always, under 23 hours, and we see how the patient does. They may need to be admitted at a later time, and then they become an inpatient, or after hydration with an IV, they may be able to be discharged and sent home and followed up later with their primary care. So, then with surgeries, we had an incredibly busy outpatient surgery month down here. And our, if you go back for about 2 years, we had one of the highest outpatient surgery months with 779 outpatient surgeries this month. Not quite sure there wasn't really one thing that was driving that. And we were 6% over in our inpatient surgeries. So that's where a lot of that outpatient volume was coming from. If you combine that with observation days, the surgeries, and the ED volume.
Sharon, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Does the outpatient surgeries include endoscopy?
I believe they do, if they're done in the surgical suite.
Okay.
So our psych continues to be very strong. And just to clarify, the psych compared to the budget does include our new psych expansion for the inpatient side. Our FTEs per adjusted patient day, all of these indicators are favorable compared to budget. And our days cash on hand, I just did want to point out, we did have a spike in February, but as I pointed out last month, both January and February, we do get a lot of our tax receipts from our property taxes. So we did, that is not an unusually or unexpected spike in cash receipts. And you'll see that trending down for the rest of the year.
Sharon, I was reading in the paper where the school districts had that impact of loss. Did that affect us also?
It is a difficult number to quantify. For those of you who may not understand the issue, the article that came out in the paper, and I will do my best to give you my take on the situation, which may not be completely factual, so take it for what it is.
No, couldn't.
So have I prefaced that?
It's a good
We are.
introduction.
There was a situation where the tax district in the last year went through a software conversion, and it was their only software conversion in decades, from what I understand. And because of this, they had many difficulties getting statements out. That was one issue. Another issue is, and I think separate from that, was the appraisal values did not get adjusted appropriately. So there's kind of two issues out there. The first issue, I believe, has been corrected. We had a meeting this week with Ron Wright, and it looks like the tax statements and collections have been righted as of today. So the dollars have been coming in, and they are back on track to where they have expected to be to date, based on the statements that had been sent out and corrected. The second issue that is out there, and the question that is not really quantifiable, is the surrounding counties from Tarrant County. If you look at their appraised values from last year to this year, have gone up somewhere between 7% and 12%. last year, Tarrant County saw about an 8% from its prior year. If you look at this year, Tarrant County only saw about a 4% increase. So the question is, did we, Tarrant County Appraisal District, correctly assess the appraised value for the collection for the monies that are coming in 16? And many of the cities and the ISDs that benefit from those taxes have questioned, did we get shorted in those appraised values? That is the question that cannot be quantified. So people have begun to wonder, is there a gap? Should we have seen the increase that we saw in prior year, and should we have seen an appraised value that would equate to those counties around us? It's a fair question. We cannot go back legally, Tarrant County Appraisal District, and reappraise those values for this current year. Legal counsel can weigh in, but
No, you're
you
correct.
know,
There's a
if I
statutory time frame that they can appraise, and then once you get past that, no, there can be no other.
so
Tarrant County for next year. Holy.
what I can tell you from a JPS standpoint, what we budgeted for budget 16 did come from a certified roll. So back to the first issue, they have and will collect what we budgeted for and what I based our operations off of. So we are not at risk for not collecting the $317 million that we based our operational budget off of for 16. It is likely that because of penalty collection and other collections that they are doing, we may very well collect a few million more than the 317 off of the certified roll. And we may benefit a bit more and have a better, we may have a couple of million more collected. So that would benefit us in this budget year. Now, if you wanted to go back and try to figure out, should we have had a 7% appraisal value increase, the 3%, the 4% that might not have been there, I think that's the second issue that I mentioned. And you can't get it back. It's not really quantifiable. What is being addressed at the appraisal district is that for this next tax year, they are gearing up from a personal property issue. You can raise the appraised value up to 10% in any given year. Commercial property values do not have that limitation. So if we did miss it by 4% overall, it seems reasonable that this next tax year they would be able to reassess a property tax appraised value that would get us up to what a reasonable appraisal value should be. So that's what I've taken away from our meeting this week.
I would also applaud Sharon for her work that she's done with Ron Wright. Ron Wright has done yeoman service, I think, to the citizens of Tarrant County for all the work that he's done dealing with the appraisal district. They're changing software. Also, Mr. Petty and Mr. Fisher have worked with Sharon in dealing with that issue. Mr. Petty obviously sees it from a variety of standpoints and other entities throughout the county. Finance was wanting to know exactly where this is, and I appreciate the explanation. It's a slightly difficult situation, but we were not only as prepared, but the sensitivity to the school districts is their budget cycles are different than ours, and they had already budgeted dollars. So we're not in that situation that they're in. So I certainly feel for our school district colleagues, but I appreciate the work that you, Sharon, have done, and you, Mr. Petty, and you, Mr. Fisher, in the question. I think it's most appropriate.
Mr. Fisher?
Well,
I mean, Mr. Montgomery.
A little taller than you.
I was looking right there at that. Thank you. So, thank you, Mr. Fisher.
so we don't have to go knock on doors and say, give us our money, all right?
No.
And
did not.
let
I was thinking about that.
let
Maybe we
me
should send Mr.
say
Fisher.
that,
Listen, Mr. Fisher, go do
the
that.
county and the appraisal district, even back in, November and December, there was a concern that, from my standpoint, that the 317 million that was in our operational budget was at risk. They were very open, concerned. We were having meetings, and they were laying out a very detailed turnaround plan for that office. And they've called us together. I had access to them. I had their cell phone numbers. And, we have a very nice working relationship with that office. DT, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm trying to wrap around to see what are some of the challenge with AR.
PT.
Move one of those mics closer to you.
Maybe both.
Move them
Yes,
both.
stereo.
We can get you in stereo.
I think our AR days looks good. It's
Yes.
a lot of improvement. Is there, what are some of the other challenges that we have that we still have out there to move the number down,
For some of the challenges that we have in AR days, we are still working through some, we have challenges both in the inpatient and the outpatient work queues right now.
Okay.
Some of the ideas, and I may be jumping ahead a little bit because of some of your expertise and AR, but one of the initiatives that I've been working with in the rev cycle for my group is charge capture and just, our rev cycle team is relatively young at JPS, and just working through some of the work queues, both in the outpatient setting and the inpatient setting, and making sure that, we've just really, in the last 12 months, started doing some best practice review and that whole area. But charge capture is going to be one of our big initiatives for 17.
So,
And our managed care contracts, I think, have been a big opportunity. And honestly, we focused a lot on the professional side of that since I've been here, and I think there's a really nice opportunity on the facility side as well.
and does the charge capture part of your area, or is it outside that you still need to negotiate on the other side? Because sometimes they split that responsibility.
No, the charge capture that I'm talking about would be coordination from finance, but we would be working with any revenue center within the hospital. So I would be coordinating with my peers throughout the hospital.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions before I move on? Connection enrollment. We talked about the ACA re-enrollment that caused the little dip, the tiny little dip that we had in January that I'm so proud of. And we are back up about 3%, almost back to the December level. So that was a nice win for us. We re-enrolled about 1,300 net enrollees this month. And again, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the detailed income statement because the story here is simply this top line. We had about $2 million of net revenue, and it was simply volume. We had about 7% revenue excess because of the inpatient volume produced by the days, and we had about 8.5% spin off from the outpatient volumes. Again, a lot of ED, a lot of surgeries, and a lot of hospital activity that was generated this month. Some of the expense overages that you see in there, especially the salaries, were nursing care to take care of those volumes that were going through the hospital. But most of that, 1.6 million, did fall to the bottom line. So if there's no other questions for the medical center, I will turn it over to Maria to go over PG.
Thank you, Sharon. Good morning, Maria.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Well, we are excited for PG because we too had a good month when it came to volumes. And as I indicated last month, we were short, but I did promise that we would make it up in February, and we did. So both for the current month, we came in, our encounters were at 29,925 compared to a budget of 27,782. And
Maria,
then
I'm sorry, Maria. You said you made it up. Was it 100? It was like 157 last time, and it's 112.
it was
this time?
the encounters last month were at 24,000 for the
Oh,
month.
the encounters.
Yes,
Right.
compared to a budget of 28,000. And so this month we came in at 29,000
Okay.
compared to a budget of 27,000. And on a year-to-date basis, our encounters for this fiscal year is at 137,609, and it compared to a budget of 137,160. So we've exceeded our budget for encounters by 449. Family practice, internal medicine, and oncology exceeded their budget for the month on encounters. And then year-to-date, those three departments, well, internal medicine and oncology continue to exceed the budget on a year-to-date basis. Family practice is fairly close, and pediatrics is under, slightly under. The net patient service revenue per encounter, we're not meeting our budget there. It does have to do with the contractual because, however, on the gross charges, we are exceeding our budget and doing quite well there. We continue to monitor our expenses, and therefore, we are coming in under our budgeted expenses. The days cash on hand, they continue to remain consistent. So we did have we did receive some disrupt funds. So that's what resulted in the increase in February compared to January. And then our net accounts receivable days, we did go up 2 days. We're at 20 versus we've been consistently at 18. And the reason that we did go up 2 days is because of a place of service denials, a little glitch we encountered in our system this month. However, it's been taken care of, and so we've already seen it going back down. Our payer mix continues to remain consistent as prior months. And then our income statement, I'll go over that briefly. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we continue to do well on the encounters side, the volume, as well as gross patient revenue. and then continue to monitor the expenses, and we did beat our budget. We came in at a $25,000 loss compared to $137,000 for the month. And then, of course, year-to-date, we're continuing to beat our budget as well. $687,000 loss compared to a budget of $901,000. So, and I do anticipate March, we're going to have another good month. In regards to encounters, we seem to just, we're continuing to be consistent on that and meeting our budget. So very, very excited for PG on the encounter side.
Thank
Any
you, Maria.
questions?
Any questions for Maria? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need to move to accept the reports from?
Yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion to accept the
So
reports from Sharon. We have a motion by Reverend Emerson, a second by Mr. Nguyen. Any further questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Sumter. Item 5B.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The first agenda item related to Reliance Standard Life Insurance. It is for our stop loss agreement. Stop loss is a product that allows us to reimburse. It's a reimbursement mechanism for catastrophic claims, and so we are coming forward to request approval of the Reliance Standard continuing relationship with JPS. We went out with a broker to secure a good insurance product, and Reliance Standard was selected as the most cost-effective based on the underwriting and information obtained from the carrier. Are there any questions?
You've heard the explanation. Any questions for Ms. Sumter?
Move approval.
We have a motion for approval on Reverend Emerson. Second by Mr. Bose. Any further questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Nikki. And item C.
Item C is our Talent Plus assessment. It is also a continuation, an agreement that we've had for 2 years. Talent Plus provides online talent assessments for our non-clinical and clinical team members, as well as some executive products as well for growth and development. We use this tool during the applicant tracking process, and we're looking to continue the relationship with Talent Plus.
Any questions for Nikki?
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. Bose, second by Mr. Nguyen. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Nikki. Mr. Mendenhall.
Good morning. So what you have in front of you today is a proposal to do our upgrades to our two firewalls that we have, one at the Richardson Data Center as well as the one at the data center that's in the basement of our hospital. This was a budgeted item from Palo Alto Networks. It'll also give us some advanced threat protection, which we don't have on our current firewalls today. So the budget cost was $278, and we were able to come in right at that number.
David, I just read something recently that breaches, data security breaches, even if you just limited it to 25,000 records,
Yes.
the damages can amount to over $9.5 million.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and that's what the criminals are going after right now because they know that. And I think we've spoke before at a board meeting about ransomware and so on and so forth. And this is one of those things we have to have so that we can. People talk about it's not a matter of when, or if, it's a matter of when, and we've got to do whatever we can to up our security just because of that, and also to keep our patient data as secure as we possibly can.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah,
bet.
we're a target, no question.
Yes, we are.
Great investment. I'll entertain a motion or any questions for David on this?
Move approval.
Motion by
Yes.
Reverend Emerson. Question by.
What's that?
Is it Palo Alto?
Yes. Yeah, we use Palo Altos now, and when we've gone out to bid and done, we've done several proof of concepts with Cisco and other security companies. And Palo's, the technology is just about the same, the threat protection is about the same, but it's how fast you can get the bandwidth in and out. And what we've seen with Palo Alto Networks is we can get a lot more throughput and bandwidth with them using the same technologies as Cisco and some of the other ones that are out there.
You know who's the sales account manager on that one is?
So, actually I do. I can look it up real quick. But we don't use Palo. We actually use a third-party reseller, so I don't know who the Palo
Okay.
person
No, I
is.
just want to make sure I don't have any conflict. Okay, I'm good.
No, we use a third, we actually, if you look into the contract, this is kind of an interesting one. We're actually using two third-party resellers. Optiv is the one that we're purchasing from, but Optiv is subcontracting that to a minority-owned business and giving 75% of the deal to a minority-owned business.
Okay, we have a motion to approve on the table. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bose. Any further questions for David? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. And I've been asked to pull item E from the agenda. We're going to go look at some of the cost assumptions in that and come back to y'all. We're going to skip down to item F. Laura. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm here this morning to ask you to consider a continuing relationship that we've had with National Research Corporation. This is the organization that distributes our patient experience surveys, HCAP surveys, that is what you may know as. And this is, again, a continuing relationship. The cost has been in the budget, and we actually come in under budgeted dollars for this particular agreement.
Music to my ears.
Mine too.
Any questions for Laura? Entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. Bose, second by Mr. Nguyen. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Kathleen. Again, this is my favorite part of these meetings.
Making it difficult.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here today to present the first of three contracts that I have, and the first one is for National Decision Support, and that is a contract for our radiology program that allows us to meet the CMS 2017 mandate, requiring appropriate software to be added to our systems and implemented with Epic so that the physicians have some additional information given to them at order. This is a 5-year contract budgeted at $125,000 a year, and we're coming in at a $12,000 a year savings.
Any questions for Kathleen?
Motion to approve.
A motion for approval by Mr. Petty, a second by Mr. Bose. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Kathleen.
The second contract is for ARUP Laboratories, and this is our primary reference lab that we use in laboratory services. We went back to the drawing board and asked for improved pricing, and what we have is a budgeted $3 million, and we came in at $2,600 roughly, with an annual savings of $38,143. So this is an amendment to reduce the cost.
2.6.
2.6, I'm sorry.
Good try.
388,000 annual.
Great. All right, you've heard the explanation. Any questions for Kathleen?
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. Bose. Second by Dr. Mazzingill. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item I.
The third contract is for Hologic Incorporated, and this is for the reagents for our GC chlamydia testing that we're bringing in-house. This, we brought the instrument analyzer to you some time ago, and this will improve our turnaround time from 3 days to 1 day. This was budgeted at $230,000 and coming in at $162,750 on an annual basis. So it is a savings of $67,000 from budget.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the budgeted cost, how do y'all determine what the input is? What do you input in the budget for that budgeted cost?
We get quotes from the vendors, and then we try to work them lower as we do the contracts.
I mean, I just find it interesting that we're saving so much money from the budgeted cost. I'm trying to figure out how we
We're
determine
continuously, the laboratory VAT team continuously goes back and tries to keep reducing costs wherever possible. And part of that has to do with increasing volumes or lowering volumes and that sort of thing, and activity within the lab. Working closely with Dr. Miles now, she's helping us with those negotiations.
I think it's a requirement if you work with Kathleen.
Okay, any further questions? Entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
A motion by Dr. Weber, a second by Reverend Emerson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
very much. Item J and K, as you know from correspondence, have been pulled from the agenda. Any report from General Counsel?
No.
No report. All right, and we have nothing in closed. So ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.
You two back there,